Howdy, Red O'Loughlin here. We're doing Talking Heads today on the USA Global TV and Radio Network, and we're at part two of a six-part series on toxins. Last week we talked basically at the 30,000 foot level in general about toxins. Today we're going to dive down a little bit deeper, and toward the end of the show we're actually going to get into some specific ones that are most common. And what do they do to you? What can they do to you? And how serious some of them are. I'll pull up a slide here, and there we go. Basic introduction, as we do every other time. My disclaimer is I'm not a pharmaceutical salesman, never been in that industry. I'm not a doctor, have no degree or anything in the medical field. I'm a researcher, though. Many years ago, I fell in love with chemistry. Long before I met my wife, I would have become a chemist if I hadn't gotten an invitation to Vietnam. But nowadays, I use my chemical knowledge to research the human body at the cellular level, chemically speaking. I look for cause and effect relationships. Chemicals have a certain thing about them. You add this one to this one, this happens. You add a little bit of heat, it happens faster. You add this catalyst, and maybe it happens 1,000 times faster. But there are certain things that you can do to speed up or slow down certain reactions or stop them. And that's what I like to find out about in the human body. We experience all these things, and is there something that we can do that will actually help us with the good stuff and slow down or stop completely the bad stuff? That's where that's my passion. That's where my focus is. And so as I'm doing that, I want to look at the different things that are happening. Some of them might be foods we eat. Some of them might be chemicals we put in our bodies, the vitamins, minerals, etc. Other ones may be something as unknown as toxins. And toxins, it's a naturally occurring molecule. It could be synthetically made, but it's a chemical, and it is produced typically, if you look at it from a biological perspective, from a metabolic resource of living organisms. But in reality, it's a chemical that causes harm to our body. It's something that we're toxic. Now, not everybody may have the same level of toxicity. Acetaminophen, Tylenol, for most of us, that's not a problem. But there are more than a couple hundred people die every year from just acetaminophen. One of the guys in my squadron in New Orleans, he had never had in his life. He took some, he ended in the hospital for a week. Some of us have very, very serious reactions to things, and other people have none. So our toxins can be just a simple compound that's generally safe for everybody, but yes, it will kill some people. We have the same thing with the vaccines. They're generally considered safe at a certain level, but you give out 1,000,000 vaccines and you can have some harm from a vaccine that's been approved to be safe. What are some of the toxins we're looking at? Well, gasoline, lead, mercury, we know about those. But the germs, we get, I listed snake venom there, cancer, toxic relationships. Just because a toxin is not necessarily a chemical, that toxic relationship you have somebody can create a lot of internal distress, and we have problems from that. We have toxic thinking, too much negativity. There's a lot of things. Radon, it's a gas that seeps up from the earth. We have no control over it. A car exhaust, if you live next to a road, you're going to occasionally smell some of that exhaust that's out there when the wind is driving right. If you're anywhere where there's rivers and there's runoff and floods, you're going to have the pesticides and the fertilizers and everything else that's out there, and plus all the chemicals that get washed down the road. Just so many things. The thing you're watching right now, blue light, yes, can cause us harm, but it depends on many things. Are we doing it in moderation? Am I right on top of everything? Am I there all the time? So there's certain things we need to do. But how do we get the toxins in our body? Most of the time by breathing. That's the number one. Sometimes through eating, sometimes just by touching. So those are the ground rules, and we're going to take off from there. Okay, so if I asked you, how many toxins does a person come in contact with on a daily basis? Well, the Environmental Working Group, EWG, and that is the primary number one resource for toxins, ewg.org, did a study a while back of about 2,300 Americans. They found an average woman uses about 12 products a day, and there's 168 unique chemicals that are in those 12 products. But if you look at other studies that are done, some show up to 515, literally with about the same number of products. So if it's between 200 and 500, why don't we call it somewhere around 350? But there's hundreds of chemicals that we come in contact every day that we either inhale, it gets in touch with our skin because we purposely put it there, or it's something we eat. And ironically, if it touches if it touches the skin, over half of those chemicals will actually be absorbed into the skin and right straight into the bloodstream. And particularly nowadays with the nanotechnology, we're making the particles so small, it's like there's a highway straight into your body. How about men? Well, maybe half of the products that women use, so they're saying six, but they're saying there's 85 unique chemicals. There's probably in reality a lot more than that. If you look at your water that you get from your sink, you put a glass of water over, you drink it. Well, you know that your city water supply is pretty safe. They'll say it's outstanding, it's excellent, it's good, whatever, but it's safe. And it has the mercury, and it has the lead, and it has those kinds of things removed because that's what they're paid to do. But there's probably over 100 prescription drugs coming out of your sink, because when people throw their drugs into the toilet and they flush it, that stuff ends up into the water system, and we don't filter out. It's there. Yeah, it's in very, very micro amounts, but it's still there. What about teens? Well, teens will use 50% more products than the average woman does. And there's, again, hundreds of unique chemicals that they have. But because of the kinds of products that teens choose, on the average, you have more than a dozen. They're saying on the average 16 hormone altering chemicals, something that affects a teenager's endocrine system. And that's not what you want to be. You're raising a kid. You don't want to have extra hormones. I mean, we have enough hormones going around anyway. You don't need the extra ones that are just created because they slather it up with something on their shampoo or their moisturizer or whatever they happen to be using. And so those are things that we need to be cognizant of. And we're going to go a little bit more detail as we get through the program today. How about on a daily basis? Okay, I'm not using makeup, I'm not using cosmetics, I'm not using personal care products, but in the big scheme of things, just everyday life, there are hundreds of thousands of toxic chemicals that we have the potential to be exposed to. And you smell, you are talking to somebody, and then all of a sudden somebody walks by and you get this little whiff of perfume, and it catches your attention. Perfumes have toxins in them. If you walk into a place and you can smell the antiseptic, I remember not that many years ago, we were spending a lot of time in assisted living facilities, and some you walk into and it just smelled awful. Others smelled antiseptic, but the cleaning products have a lot of toxins in them. Cosmetics, we're going to talk a little bit more about cosmetics later today. Plastic water bottles. A lot of the products that we have flame retardants added to them, so that in the event a cigarette falls down there or something burns, that it retards it, so it gives us enough time to put the fire out. Our carpets, our mattresses, baby car seats, foods more so than personal care products, absolutely. But there's so many ways that we can come in contact with toxins on a daily basis. Now you say, well, I shop organic, I wash everything. Well, those are things that we can do, but that's going to be a topic for another day. We're going to get into how can we get rid of them? How can we purge them from our bodies and stuff? What about in your typical home? Well, if you look at the typical home, and 62 is probably a low number, but 62 is what they say the average home has. And these are toxic chemicals, not just synthetic chemicals are there, but they're saying actual toxins. We have them in our clothes detergents. When I buy my clothes detergent, and yes, I buy it, I go to look at what's on that label. I want to make sure I know what's in there. And I get the stuff that has the least amount, and I've been pretty happy with the stuff I buy. Fabric softeners, I don't use anymore. It's just one of those things. But fabric softeners, bleach, solvents, drain cleaners. Yeah, you may argue, well, I only use a drain cleaner once a year or once every 6 months. It's still a toxic chemical in your home. Shampoo, most of us use it on a regular basis. Furniture polish, not as often as we shampoo our hair, but it's still there. Microwave popcorn, we talked about that last week, that butter smell that you get when the microwave is popping, it smells so good. Diacetyl is the chemical that's responsible for that. Hand sanitizers. I was in the doctor's office 2 weeks ago, and they're fanatics on sanitizer. He actually put gloves on over the stethoscope that he was measuring me, a little plastic, and we got done. He offered me the sanitizer because I was getting back dressed again, and I said no. I said I particularly don't use hand sanitizers because of the number of toxins that are in. And he looked at me, and so I finished getting dressed, and I'm sitting there, we're chatting there. At the end, I pick up the hand sanitizer container, and it's a big one. It's one of those push button things there at the top, and anyway, and I go 1, 2, 3, 4. There was 6 that I knew immediately were toxin. And I said, because of this particular kind of hand sanitizer, it's made to evaporate very quickly and get into the skin. Yes, it sanitizes the bad bugs, but it also adds a lot of bad chemicals into our bodies. Antifreeze, air fresheners, if it's not a natural thing, chances are there's something that's toxic about it. What are some of the sources? Well, we've talked about a few of them already. But our clothing, once you wash your clothes, it has toxins in it. You're wearing it all day long. That stuff is going to leach out into the skin. Our cookware, carpeting, the foods we buy, the packaging that the foods come in, solvents. I worked in a lab a long time ago. I loved it. I was working for PPG Chemical Division in Corpus Christi, Texas. We used ethylene dichloride as a solvent to clean glassware. I was amazed at how well that cleaned. Several years later, I find out that that's a major toxin that they're doing everything in the world to get rid of. But we were using it back then because we didn't know any better. We talked about flame retardants, dyes, the water that we have, pesticides, mold, lots and lots and lots of things in the home that are toxic. Now, if we look at how do we control them? Well, the European Union has banned over 1,300 chemicals, mainly found in cosmetics. Well, that's nice. They've also banned another amount of chemicals that they find in food and other places too. But the US FDA has only banned 8 and restricted the use of 5. And you're saying to yourself, well, if Europe is saying 1,000 plus chemicals could be bad, and the US says, oh, no, it's only 8. Well, in the United States, we have a free market. And as such, there's no safety involved when we're looking at cosmetics. There's safety involved in other aspects of things, vaccines, for instance, but not in the cosmetic and personal care product industries. So there's no safety testing required until a problem arises. Then all of a sudden they're going to start having all sorts of testing done on it. But if you look at, that's a $60 billion industry just for personal care products. That's a huge industry. There's a Personal Care Product Safety Act. It was started, I think, introduced to Congress about 2015. It kept going in and out. I think the last one I saw was 2021. Anyway, the main Safety Act that went into effect back in 1938, this thing's coming into effect 80 years after that original act. But there's been nothing in there that really and truly provides for us to have continual update on our we have more chemicals now than we had 10 years ago. You go back 50 years, we have 1,000 more chemicals. But the Personal Care Product Safety Act says the industry will review 5 potentially hazardous chemicals every year. 5? Well, that's what they say. And if they come up with some hazardous test that shows, well, this could be a possible problem, based on those tests, the FDA has the power immediately to ban or restrict the use of it. Now, a lot of times the FDA will say it's generally GRAS, generally recognized as safe, GRAS, generally recognized as safe. So they're saying, and yes, it's a carcinogen. Yes, it can cause cancer, but in the levels that it's in this food or in this other thing, it's not, it doesn't rise to the level that it's really a problem. Well, I hate to tell you, there's a lot of things that we don't test, and that's what happens. So how do we get toxins in our bodies? I've mentioned breathing, eating, and through the skin. But that gets in the bodies, and if we're constantly eating, we're constantly putting on that extra moisturizer, we're getting our showers done every day, we're just constantly adding this stuff to the body. Well, the body can eliminate stuff just on a regular basis. All the toxins are processed through the liver, processed out through the body through either breathing, exhaling, urination, defecation, the way we get rid of things. Sometimes we sweat it out of our bodies. But typically, if we want to speed up that process, we fast and we allow our bodies literally to take more time and process out everything. If we're not processing things out fast enough and that something has to happen, the liver is going to just kind of encapsulate it in a fat molecule and just kind of put it off to the side. Sometimes going on a water only fast for a while, you're really hydrating the body, allowing it to flush everything out. Uh, we talk about saunas. We sweat things out. You go in for a massage, and you get that lymphatic effect of the body's kind of pushing everything out. Uh, there's some specific foods that are highly recommended for uh, detoxing. We have some supplements the same way, but cleanses, detoxing, all those things will take that toxic buildup and bring them down. We're going to go into a lot more detail on another program, but just to mention it today, that yeah, we have them, they're building up in our bodies. And if we're eating 3, 4, 5 meals a day and we're not allowing enough time to have the body take care of itself, yeah, we're going to build up with a lot of them. What are some of the typical symptoms that we see? Well, toxins have one major issues. They make you look older. Your wrinkled skin, uh, blotches. A lot of aging is a toxic reaction to something. Sometimes you have hair loss. Sometimes the hair changes color. Fatigue. Fatigue is one of those ones that everything in the world causes fatigue. Sometimes our nails get a little brittle. You sit there and you scrape something off and the nail cracks. Well, maybe you have more toxins in your body than you think about. Sometimes it comes out as bad breath. Sometimes we just get that sick feeling, that nausea. Sometimes toxins get in the way of the normal body processes, and as such, your metabolism slows down. All of a sudden, you start gaining some weight. Along with fatigue, you get that brain fog. Lots and lots. I just picked a few of them that are easy to associate with. Why don't we talk about a few? I listed, I think, 8 or 9 here. Uh, these all deal with personal care products. BHA, butylated hydroxyanisole. BHA is found in a lot of things, primarily in makeup. Uh, it's reasonably assumed to be a human carcinogen. It, in particular, in lab animals, they've seen in many demonstrations of stomach cancer from those kinds of studies. When you start looking at other things that BHA has been involved in, they find liver cancer in fish. Uh, not something that we want to have as part of our daily life. But on the back of on the label of anything, if BHA is in there, it's going to say BHA. If they can't get around not saying it, but it's going to say something like that. Now, it may be spelled out, as you see there, butylated hydroxyanisole. But as we start looking at labels, you're going to be able to see exactly what some of these things are. And all of these things in our personal care products are there. You take that same personal care product made in Europe, they may have 5 items in it. In the United States, they'll have 15 or 20. The difference is all these extra synthetic chemicals to make it last longer in storage, to make it look better, have a better color, have a better smell, to make it feel better as it goes on from a texture perspective. If we're eating it, it's going to have that creamy, luscious, just unctuous taste in our mouth. A lot of things that we use for preservatives, for all sorts of things. Anyway, toxins abound. Another one, formaldehyde. Well, back when I was in chemistry lab, formaldehyde was something every time we got into uh, not comparative anatomy, but we had to work on dead cats and we would have to memorize all the muscles and the bones and everything. But you lift that top off of that big 55-gallon drum, and formaldehyde just reeked in the room for most of the class we were there. But that's what they stored everything in back then. Nowadays, in personal care products, it's still used. It's used a lot in hair straightening products, nail hardeners. I only put a few of them on here, but formaldehyde is found in many things that you would never expect. But formaldehyde has a very organic odor to it. You smell something, and it's probably not good for you. You walk into a nail salon, you could keep your eyes closed. Somebody takes you in there by the hand. You know you're a nail salon because you can smell it. There's just certain chemicals that are there, and people work there all day long. Anyway, formaldehyde is known to be a human carcinogen. 2 of the cancers, and again, as we're breathing this stuff, our nasal pharyngeal cancer or the sinonasal cancers are some that are really depicted as a cancer caused by formaldehyde. Lymphohepatopoietic cancer, again, is another one that starts getting further into our lymph nodes. But again, if you're using something and you can smell it, maybe there's another product out there that doesn't have that same level of smell. I remember when they changed the car paints because they wanted to have a healthier environment, and the old car paints, everything was fine. You never had a problem with paint. Then all of a sudden, you get these white streaks going down. The paints weren't staying on. 3 years the paint job on the car looked terrible because the things that we used to use, we're finding replacements for it, but we don't have a chance to test that replacement for 5 or 10 or 15 years. And so as we put these things into the system, we're finding out. So yes, you may have a new product that doesn't have a smell to it, but we still don't know how safe it is because we just don't know. We'll talk about how we can find out some of those down the road. 1,4-dioxane. Anything that has a foam in it, body wash, shampoo, and those kind, toothpaste, foaming agents, is 1,4-dioxane. They classify it as a probable human carcinogen because we're talking at levels, again, generally recognized as safe. But in reality, in a lot of tests and studies, liver and kidney damage, not necessarily cancer, but liver and kidney damage can be caused by those kinds of things. So if you're taking a shower every day and you're using a body wash and you're just getting that foam all over you, maybe you don't need to be using that much on a regular basis. Look at what other options are out there. Parabens. There are so many different kinds of parabens, and they're found in makeup and moisturizers and shaving creams. There are just a lot of places and parabens are a major problem in our world. Parabens and phthalates. We'll talk about phthalates next. But parabens are an endocrine disruptor. In other words, we have our reproductive system, our endocrine system, and when a paraben gets in the middle of our body, that molecule just disrupts our system. Breast cancer, sperm DNA damage, reproductive hormone issues in men. A lot of the endocrine disruptors are found in a lot of the products our teenagers are using. And many times we don't even know about it. Then all of a sudden you get a 7 or 8-year-old that has some kind of reproductive problem. I'm actually endocrine system problem. And if it can be traced back, it's probably traced back to a particular cause. And paraben might be one of those causes. But it's one of those ones. If there's something in there that has a paraben in it, methylparaben, it's not worth it. It really, truly isn't. Phthalates. We're finding perfumes, hairspray, shampoos. If you notice, shampoos and perfumes and moisturizers not only have one chemical, 2, 3, 4, 5, they have many chemicals. How does 12 products have 500 chemicals? Because they just load them up. Look at the back of any kind of, and I'll be doing some comparative shopping on some of these things, the labels, because they just load them up. They do have, phthalates have a reproductive health issue, especially during pregnancy, more so than anything else. And it affects male fetuses much more than female fetuses. We also have a problem with the phthalates. At least it indicates there's a high prevalence of ADHD in children. Again, we're not doing clinical studies, so we're using this as in some cases testimonial, but in many cases, there seems to be a lot of evidence that points in that direction. Toluene, another chemical that I used way back when. It wasn't as good as ethylene dichloride, but it was one that we used for a number of things. It's found in nail polish. It's one that we typically smell in hair salons. But we breathe it in, and just like that toxin, maybe going in and affecting our nose, sometimes it goes straight into our lungs. We have problems with our gut. We have problems with our heart. We have problems with our brain. These toxins go to different places. Well, this particular one has more of an effect on our cognitive and our neural nervous system. So if you're starting to have a lot of time in hair salons and you're finding out that you're having issues with not being able to think clearly, some behavioral things, toluene might be a potential cause. Again, we don't know that for certain, but there's so much evidence out there that really points to it. We see a lot of nervous systems depressed. Your nervous system is depressed. Your immune system is probably also depressed to a deal. Neurobehavioral impairment, upper respiratory. As you're breathing it in, we're going to have problems with our lungs. So those are things that are there. Another one, triclosan. I mentioned this last week that my wife's oncologist in the restroom that was right outside his office had a sign up that says our soaps contain triclosan. And I'm thinking to myself, why would you advertise that? Somewhere along the way, somebody thought that they had to. They actually put a label on the mirror. Well, it's found in toothpaste, it's found in soaps. Again, one of those ones that's generally recognized as safe, but people who have enough of it over time, and again, it's not a moderation issue, it's just a lot of, we have an increased risk of hay fever and allergies, particularly in children. We have an immune system impairment, thyroid hormone suppression. There are some things we just don't need in our foods and our products, and triclosan, I believe, is one of them. Sodium lauryl sulfate, SLS. It'll be seen on the label as SLS. Anything that has a abbreviation like this one, generally have a suspect about it that has a particular number associated with it. Again, probably not something you want in there. But we see this SLS in toothpaste a lot. We see it in soaps and shampoos. And ironically, it has been proved that when you have this, if you have some level of ulcer pain, and you're using this SLS or products with SLS, it has a tendency to lengthen the duration and the intensity of that ulcer pain that you might have. It's also an irritant for your eyes, your skin, your lungs. It's not a thing to have, but it's found almost everywhere. It's amazed at how many things are in that. And here we are almost toward the end of our show. I can be found at redolaughlin.com. That's red as in the color RED, O'Laughlin, OLAUGHLIN. So it's Red O'Laughlin, RED, OLAUGHLIN.com. My email address, my phone number is all there in the banner. Easy to find me. I'm a speaker and I'm author. Two of the books I have here on display, one's called The Joy of Ageless Health, talks about the primary causes of disease and what you can do about it. It's a #1 best-selling book on Amazon. My Longevity Secrets for Healthy Aging is another book on Amazon, also on my website. It talks about the two primary causes of aging: your human growth hormone that we make less of as we get older, and the length of our telomeres at the end of our DNA. And as those cells replicate and go from one cell to two cells, you lose a little bit at the end of that. So it's the rate of erosion that you have. So as it gets smaller and smaller, we start seeing more and more age-related issues. So Red O'Laughlin, I'm signing off on Talking Heads today, and we'll be back again next week. And I'm happy to have you all join us here for 2023. And our new topic for this year is toxins. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. Take care.